we're really early, and it's kind of weird that keep hearing this. Like for us, we've been around for so long, and we've been saying this, and other people are saying this. We're early, but we really are early because Bitcoin is trading at 70,000 something, 80,000, even anything under 120,000, 110,000. I think is below fair market value, and that can be determined in a number of ways. Just keeping track with inflation, like Bitcoin needs to be at 111,000, I think, to keep track with inflation over the past 4 to 5 years. And then fair market value from stock to flow models are indicating its fair market value something like 110, 115,000. So this is a deep, deep discount right now. And it's because people don't really understand Bitcoin.
A major theme is the distinction between ownership and understanding. Mow argues that many participants in the Bitcoin market don't actually get it. History supports this claim. Early adopters like Roger Ver famously shifted away from Bitcoin despite being deeply involved in its early days. This reveals an uncomfortable truth. Being early doesn't guarantee understanding. Profit doesn't equal conviction. Participation doesn't equal belief. Even today, some investors rotate into alternative cryptocurrencies, believing they offer better technology or upside. But from Mo's perspective, this is a fundamental mistake. Bitcoin's value isn't about features, it's about immutability, decentralization, and monetary neutrality. Those who truly understand this tend to stay, those who don't eventually leave.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
Well, I honestly didn't think he would cross 500,000 Bitcoin, but he did. So I think it just goes to show how early we are and how few people in the world really understand Bitcoin. People are still allocating maybe 1% of their portfolios to Bitcoin. They're kind of dipping their toes in the water. Bitcoin still correlates a lot with the stock market, software indices, tech stocks, etc. So we're really early, and it's kind of weird that keep hearing this. Like for us, we've been around for so long, and we've been saying this, and other people are saying this. We're early, but we really are early because Bitcoin is trading at 70,000 something, 80,000, even anything under 120,000, 110,000. I think is below fair market value, and that can be determined in a number of ways. Just keeping track with inflation, like Bitcoin needs to be at 111,000, I think, to keep track with inflation over the past 4 to 5 years. And then fair market value from stock to flow models are indicating its fair market value something like 110, 115,000. So this is a deep, deep discount right now, and it's because people don't really understand Bitcoin. We saw Bitcoin drop when there was conflict heating up in the Middle East with Iran, and that's just not something a rational actor would do in the face of war, because war is when you need neutral money. You don't want to keep UST bills or currencies held in central banks of various countries around the world. You want something that has no counterparty risk, which means nobody can seize it, prevent you from spending it, or dictate what you can or cannot do with your money. So we are very, very early still. And I think the market will realize this when it's too late. Well, I think maybe we're running in different circles. All the whales and old timers I know are still all in, but I'm curious who you know that's selling, because I don't really know anybody that is losing conviction in Bitcoin. But I think what you're talking about illustrates a broader picture, which we've kind of realized over time, that a lot of people that are in Bitcoin don't really necessarily understand Bitcoin, right? You can go back to examples like Roger Ver. Did he really understand Bitcoin because he sold it for Bcash? Um, there's a number of these people that were lucky, got in, and they didn't really get it. I mean, I don't want to name names, like there's a lot of people that don't really get it. There are other people pushing Zcash and saying it's better than Bitcoin, and I think they may be pulling a Roger Ver selling some Bitcoin to buy Zcash, and I don't think that's a smart decision. But everyone can do whatever they like to do with their money. But I think a lot of people that understand Bitcoin know that there is nowhere else to go. You can think it's not going to go up, but still, like, why would you want to sell it for an asset that's treading water? It's depreciating at 11%. Like Michael Saylor's thesis that fiat money is an ice cube that's going to melt, and you're losing 11% a year, and that's generous. I think it's real inflation is probably like more 20% around that line, and money is always being printed. Debt is always going up. The US is getting close to $40 trillion in debt now. It's just the compounding is devastating. So why do you want to hold this unless you're very high time preference and you just, I don't know, want to buy a boat and spend a lot of money? But that's a lifestyle choice. And I think even if you put Bitcoin aside, a lot of people in the traditional world of having money, they realize that that's not really freedom. You're just changing your chains to something else. Now you have to maintain your boat, your jet, and you have to keep up appearances and spend to, just on upkeep. And I think the simpler way to live life is just to have a simple life where you don't have to worry so much about your day-to-day cost of living and your unexpected things that you might need to buy or spend money on, or like health or whatever. But that's real freedom. I think that's kind of the Bitcoiner perspective. So I think the real Bitcoiners that understand money, understand Bitcoin, are really not going anywhere. It's just the tourists, they're leaving. And some of the tourists might be whales, but I don't know any personally because I I don't know. Maybe I pick my friends more carefully. Yeah, I've seen that. I forgot who wrote that, but it was like, this is the IPO moment. But every time the price is down, someone somewhere is going to try to rationalize it, right? Like, it's because of this specific reason. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. Sometimes the market just can be irrational. People are overexposed for various reasons, or they're trying to use Bitcoin as a hedge because they're worried about macroeconomic factors like war, which doesn't make sense because they don't understand Bitcoin is not a tech stock, but they're dumping stuff ahead of time because Bitcoin is a more liquid market and it's 24/7 and global. So it's just used as a dumping ground. But I see that it's coming to a close because traditional markets are becoming 24/7, and they're even trying to tokenize and launch on various blockchains too. So there won't be a real need to dump Bitcoin ahead of bad news to hedge anymore. And you couple that with the massive amount of buying demand from Strategy, from STRC, and other companies, that's not really a bearish thing that the tourists leave and the people with a plan and long-term outlook are coming in.
A fascinating dynamic is emerging between stablecoins and Bitcoin. Countries under financial pressure, including those facing sanctions, are increasingly experimenting with stablecoins for trade. This creates a dilemma for regulators, particularly in the United States. Promote stablecoins to maintain dollar dominance or restrict them to maintain control. If restrictions tighten, users may migrate toward Bitcoin, a truly neutral alternative. This creates a pivotal moment in monetary history. Control versus freedom. Centralization versus decentralization. Fiat rails versus neutral rails. Bitcoin sits at the center of this tension.
Well, definitely, Bitcoin price is affected by macro. It's like we are integrated into the financial system now through all these different instruments, ETFs, like TradFi, futures markets, everything like that. So there's no separating Bitcoin. We've definitely grown up and we've grown into a place in the financial system, which I think is only going to get bigger and bigger as people understand Bitcoin. But if you look at the war playing out, is definitely very interesting on a number of fronts. So you've seen that Iran is um, they've been rumored to be taking Bitcoin for payment along with stable coins and Chinese yuan. But I don't think we've seen any confirmation yet. Like, no address has been publicized that, this is a Bitcoin address that's going to Iran. But the interesting thing there, less so for Bitcoin, more so for stable coins, is that Iran is seemingly accepting payment in stable coins. And this is at a very unique time in the history of the Federal Reserve, which is they're they're seeing a decrease in demand for treasuries and the US dollar in general as the world becomes multipolar and nations are going off the dollar or being forced off the dollar, like in the case of Russia. But to make up for that shortfall, they've kind of embraced stablecoins. So they passed the Genius Act. They're pushing stablecoins heavily. A number of countries are, but the thing is, they need that to offset that drop in demand. But stablecoins, for the most part, are somewhat permissionless. Yes, they can be frozen, but for a certain amount of time, they can move freely. And if Iran is accepting stablecoins for payments, then it's sort of like the meme where the guy is like got two red buttons and he's got to choose like, do I want the dollar to live or do I want to control the dollar? Because if you start to block that rail, then definitely Iran will move to a neutral money like Bitcoin. And I think this is an interesting precipice to be standing on to watch what the world chooses to do. Um, I really can't figure out either way which one they're going to go with, so I'm watching along with everyone else. But it's definitely very entertaining to watch this dilemma unfold in real time. I wish that was the case, but it's not. Like we've engaged, like we don't talk about it that much, but we do meet with a lot of central banks, and I think last year we had one central bank reach out directly, and there is positive development on that front. Like the Czech central bank is allocating to Bitcoin, but for the most part, I don't think they really realize what Bitcoin is. They still think it's some esoteric concept that is not pertinent to them. But yeah, you would think that all of the recent happenings are relevant. But just as an example, that central bank we talked to, we know for a fact that there are problems in that country, and they kind of said everything is great. So there's a disconnect for sure about what the reality is in the world and their understanding of how good things are or how bad things are. So in the case of nation state adoption, we kind of run into the same conundrum as most people. Like pick your neighbor, and if you try to convince your neighbor to get into Bitcoin, he'll probably look up the price after you talk to him and go, well, it's down. Like I can't buy this, it's down, it lost value. And it's the exact same thing for nation states, whether it's a president, prime minister, or a central bank, that they look at it and they think it's down. They don't want it when it's down, they want it when it's up. And we just have to wait until Bitcoin goes up and the interest rekindles. Well, we hear things, but we can't really confirm. But there are other countries that do have it, whether it's kept with the central bank or a government-owned subsidiary. That's not really material. I think the key is that it is sovereign. But we're trying to get countries to implement Bitcoin bonds. We're talking with two countries right now. It's difficult. There's a lot of back and forth, but we're still engaging with them. But if you think about it, a sovereign Bitcoin backed instrument is similar to a corporate backed instrument like STRC or STR Strategies preferred shares, right? It's stripping out volatility and sharing upside with investors with Bitcoin backing. So if we can get one or two sovereigns to issue a Bitcoin bond, then that also increases the rate of Bitcoin accumulation and decreasing the supply. So I think that's something that is very interesting to watch too. But as you said, they are dipping their toes, but time is really limited. And this is another theme that we try to cover when we engage, that there are a finite number of Bitcoin in the world, and the time frame at which you can accumulate, especially at these prices, is dropping very rapidly. I mean, we're down to the final million that is to be mined over the next 100 so odd years. But moreover than that, there's just more and more accumulators. And if you think about it, it's almost gamified in a way. Every company that's accumulating Bitcoin is kind of trying to outdo each other and race up the leaderboards for who has the most Bitcoin. And they're doing mergers, acquisitions to buy other companies that have Bitcoin too, to reach that goal. But on the nation state front, it's not that great right now, especially if you look at Bhutan, like you said, they are selling, which is not the best time to sell. But then a lot of people are selling too. Even a lot of Bitcoin miners have been divesting and pivoting to AI. Well, I don't know, but for sure the IMF had a hand in El Salvador, and then we were engaged in Suriname, and I'm pretty sure the World Bank had a hand in slowing that one down too, because they came after we went, and that conversation kind of stopped. But I don't know. I think the biggest blocker is really just inertia and lack of understanding, but that is changing very rapidly. So we do see that governments are paying more attention now because like things are happening in the US, even if they're not materially accumulating Bitcoin, they have moved legislation forward. And that's something that at a high level, other people in the world and other governments do pay attention to. Um, I think also the Bitcoin treasury companies play a part in this too. Like Metaplanet definitely put Bitcoin on the map for the government. Like they cannot ignore Bitcoin and say it's not really relevant because you're one of your fastest growing, most profitable companies, most most traded, most volatile stock out there is a Bitcoin stock. So when this happens, you kind of need to pay attention, whether you like it or not, and that can help inform the regulators and lawmakers that you have to prepare ahead of time. And that's kind of the message we bring too. That it's not just you want to buy Bitcoin one day; you need to prepare the laws and pass the laws and have the infrastructure in place to store your own Bitcoin securely within your own borders, ideally, and not held with a custodian in another country. So there's so many pieces that need to be built and laid out before anything can happen that it's just a long process. And I worry that a lot of countries just won't end up having a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I mean, many countries don't even have a gold reserve too, right? So it's a very plausible outcome of the road to hyper Bitcoinization. Well, the biggest risk is not to the nation state because the state has power. They can extract money from the population through various means. So the biggest risk really is to the people living in these countries that the government will be running out of money and they're going to try to find ways to keep money in the country or extract more money from the population. And case in point, Canada, where I live, there was a person on stage at a Liberal Party convention saying that we have to have an exit tax on young people to prevent them from leaving the country of $500,000. I don't know, Canadian dollars or US dollars. But that guy is also like working in the US. He was like a former Twitter board member. I forgot his name. But this is the extremes that a country will go to when they're out of money. And I think it's sort of the lack of planning that makes everything worse because like Canada is one of those countries that sold all its gold. We have zero gold reserves. We have incredible amounts of inflation due to rampant spending and waste, and the government is starting to suffer under the stress of that. And when you couple that with the fact that the U.S. seems to be distancing itself from Canada, or looking to absorb Canada as the 51st state, then what do you have in your arsenal to defend? Like, it's not military. Is it allies? Like, who are the allies? I don't know. But in this kind of situation where you're isolated, you have little resources. Canada has a lot of natural resources and oil too, but we're not really leveraging that. But I mean, resources to protect your sovereignty and to maintain your spending, that is a problem. And that's when countries start to try to find other ways. And usually it's the ordinary man in the street, the citizens, or as they call them, taxpayers, that have to foot the bill somehow and suffer. So that's who suffers. It's the people that suffer when countries don't have a sound economic strategy. And a Bitcoin reserve is a part of that strategy.
Another critical insight is the finite nature of Bitcoin supply. Key realities. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. Most have already been mined. The remaining supply will be released slowly over the next century. At the same time, demand is accelerating. Corporations are accumulating Bitcoin. Financial products are expanding access. Some nations are quietly exploring reserves. This creates a competitive dynamic, almost like a leaderboard, where entities race to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. Mow emphasizes that this gamification of accumulation will intensify over time, making early access increasingly valuable.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.